Okay. Hello. Let's see if I don't want that there. I want to put meld over here. Yeah, it's working for now. Let me hold for a minute and see if everything holds up. Okay. I'll go ahead and open up Discord. Tell people. Okay. Stream health. Keep the stream health. Okay. Okay, I am back. We're gonna be what this stream is gonna end up a little shorter because I had technical issues. So, just to make sure people understand what happened here, I was trying to stream. I tried to do the. You can now do simultaneous vertical streaming on Twitch, and I tried to like open that up, and for some reason, and like my YouTube stuff tanked, and I was like, oh, um, that's a problem, and I tried to like go back and turn off the vertical stream on Twitch, and then I tried to turn off Twitch entirely, and I did speed tests. Now I have gigabit internet. I should get 1 gigabit up and down. However, I was getting between 3 and 5 megabits per second upload. Not 300 and 500, 3 and 5. So I don't know what happened. I called the people at my ISP, and I called the technical support, and like all the speed tests from the router itself were doing fine. And like the service seemed to be fine. It's just like between me and my computer, which is connected with an Ethernet cable. No, download was fine. Download was 1,000, but uploads, which is what I need to stream, was 3 and 5 megabits per second. And so eventually the guy told me to switch Ethernet ports on the router. And for some reason, after that happened, I got normal upload speeds. I have no idea how that fixed anything. It may have been just like a software thing where it like recalibrated itself, but now I am back. Um and and we can get started on things. So, let's jump in. Except I have to set up my keyboard again because I restarted my computer. And we should be able to jump to this. Yeah. Oh, well, so Juno, I was thinking that they were throttling me, although that's weird because I didn't stream as often as I usually do. I missed last week. Um, that's why I was kind of angry and calling customer support to complain. But like somehow it got resolved. I don't know what happened, but okay. But we are definitely doing relativization time. Um, I'm not doing the experiment with vertical, seeing as I had that issue. Maybe next week I will experiment with that. Um, but let's jump in now. I realized actually, we go to constructions, all of our subordinate clauses, and we go down to relative clauses. Now, we had we set up some rules. I guess we did not I don't know if we actually made a decision. I think no, I think we initially had some options, and then okay. So what we had was either of these two, either just straight up the dependent form in locative case, um, right, with the preposition D, or the or just this dependent form in locative case after the noun. Now, if we're thinking about the other thing that I have to say is like in the older form of the language, only subjects can be relativized. In Middle Fey, only subjects can be relativized, and you get an implied passive or anti-passive construction. So we may have to go and check on the evolution of passives and anti-passives while we're doing this. I think we can sort of do it for just subjects first, and then we can think about like what the passive looks like in order to. So let's go down to subordination. Let's check our poll. Let's actually switch to. Okay. But yes, technology can be can be difficult. Oh, why is I'm not logged in? Okay, let me get Patreon poll from here. And our poll, something interesting happened with our poll. So we jump in here. I did make it kind of long. It ends up that one person decided You know what, Tinglish? Okay, so can ergative langs break the typical hierarchy and allow absolutives to be relativized, but not agents of transitive verbs? That is a good question, and I don't know the answer. I'm not gonna, since we're working on a nominative accusative language right now, I'm not gonna like spend a bunch of time tracking that down, but it would be interesting to think about that if you're doing an ergative language. My guess, if somebody knows they can answer Tinglish, my guess is that you have to be pretty far on the hierarchy. Because remember, um, like there's a whole hierarchy of ergative languages, and like one of the last things on that hierarchy is syntax. It's very rare for a language to be syntactically ergative, meaning that like the subject and patient are put in the same syntactic position. Um, I think that comes even after you have like verb agreement, because which like it goes from like it starts with like nouns. I think it actually is like animate, inanimate nouns, and then third person, second person, first person pronouns, and then the same for um, agreement markers on verbs, um, and then down to syntax. If I remember correctly, um, but like many times you'll have a split somewhere in that hierarchy. So we ended up with option C. Um, I have an idea that a lot of people saw that post and did not bother to read through the whole thing because it was too long. So that's something I may take into consideration for future votes. Um, but what actually came of that is something I discussed on stream, which was we can have these two options, and we can say that in Dawn we get the demonstrative, right? So are introduced with the demonstrative determiner rishi, 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 yeah, rishi. Yeah, so let's actually bold both of these, right? And the reasoning here, and then we go to dusk, and it was this option. Yeah, inflecting the verb. They okay. Let me just double check that. I think that this is immune to to mutation, but I want to just double check. Eat. Oh yeah. So that's right. Because tre, the verb tre is derived is from a historical geminate. That's why it's immune to the it is immune. So this is trej trezshra 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 and not shrezshra shrezshra shrez trez. I think yeah, that's a change that could happen. Instead of trezshra 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 trezshra. Yeah. I'll have to think about that. I don't know if I want to just say that's like an acceptable variation or actually do that. TLDR effect. Yeah. I probably should have said like up front that this is going to be a poll, maybe. Although, like the title, I think the title says poll. Okay. So we have subordination working differently. Okay. What am I fixing here? I don't know. I don't know what I needed to fix on the resultative. Somebody who. Oh, okay. Oh, I know. It's because this is actually dawn. Um, so this would be uh should be so let's fix that in a little bit. Let's actually talk about relative clauses. And so here is what we had for relatives before. We said they were not internally headed. There were not correlative. There's no receptive pronouns. They're always adjacent to the noun. Not to really focus, not to say treasure by mistake. So the water deer ate grass. So but dude but dude Desi water deer ate grass. Okay. I see. Okay, so I see what I was doing here. So what I want to do, actually, so this is the water deer that ate grass, and we just have this. I think I want to actually have that D in there, possibly. The water deer that ate grass. The grass that they ate. So here, it's been a while since we actually did this. Did the passives, but both passives and antipassives are marked with the reflexive marker on the verb. So if I but dude, you can it's also if I uh by right. So the Fae called with this, right? And then what you have is you have the reflexive marker, and you reintroduce the missing element with a preposition, an inflected preposition. Um, so, what do we think? Do we keep this? I think we need to work out the passive and antipassive quickly. We'll just go do that super quick, and then we will go back to relatives in a moment. But I have an idea here. So um so let's just call this valency. And this should be what, heading 2? No, heading 1, I think. No, that's right. Heading 1 or heading 2? What's going on? So if we collapse, oh, do I have subordination in the wrong heading. That's why. Yeah, no, this should be heading 2. I don't know why. Oh, it's just like a different font or something. Okay. So let's go. What I want to do is let's take our list of verbs and let's actually bring in get the reflexive forms. Okay, so inflection work. And if we go, what were we doing? Where was that? Well, it would be nice if I had organized things. There's the dependent verb forms. I'm going to duplicate this sheet. Huh? Copy. Man, they make this really weird. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to yeah, this is already named that. What I'm going to do, yes, so what was the actual form of this? It's a form. Where does that come from? I think it comes from a root word for body. Okay. Or self. Okay, middle Sylvan Wa. Okay, I need to take a look at what is the. I want to take a look. What's the reflexive? Where does this reflexive form come from? Probably is under verb somewhere. Right, reflexive. From eu. What's this eu? Okay. I don't even know what that was in Elder Fae, but we can just jump in and import Middle Fae. No, Middle Fae 9. Yeah, it still would be a. And then we want to. And then here's what's going to change. All right, so let's look at. The bee's knees. I have worked out how names are constructed. They're mostly transparent, like descriptive names. So I want to take a look here. So this is the reflexive. We have a reciprocal that can turn into a reflexive. So we can I was going to have. So we have, let's look at passives and antipassives. So p and ch, right? Okay, p. So let's make sure I have the middle Fey forms for that. Yeah, p. P. Wait. Let's see. If I have that AP versus H. Yeah. Yeah, so that sounds right to me. Uh Juno, because like transparent names, um the thing is all names are ultimately transparent at some point, right? You'll see if you look at like baby name sites, or you look at like people's names throughout time, right? You will find that what am I my brain is leaving. There's too much going on right now. You will find that eventually it means something. Like George, my name George, It's totally opaque in English, right? In Greek, it is Yorios, and it derives from a word meaning earth. It basically means farmer. Um, Nobody who names their kid George in English cares about that. It's always being like you're being named after somebody generally, right? And that's the thing that it has to be is like in order for you to have opaque names as a norm, you kind of need to either have you just have to have them disconnect from their historical source, probably from a tradition of naming people after other people, like naming after ancestors, which is what happened for me, or after famous personages or something like that. Um, a lot of times it involves loans. So my name comes from Greek. Many English names come from Hebrew, usually via Greek and Latin. Um, there's others that come from Latin or Greek. There are some that are Germanic, like native Germanic terms. I think Eric is just a Germanic word. Um, but even that is like historically removed from its original meaning. Yeah. Juno is from Latin for young, possibly. Who knows? Grandma named her all kids names starting with J. Yeah, that's like, um the other so it it became very common in the Christian context where you had a bunch of like conventional names that had biblical origins, right? Um, I imagine it's common in the Muslim context where, like, the common Muslim names like Muhammad and Abdullah are transparent in Arabic, but there are many non Arabic speaking people with those names, right? So let's go. Fufi, Sabu, Chichi, Chishu, Kriyu, Pichu. Okay, interesting. What happens in dusk about these? Fifie. Oh, wow. Oh, oh. Feu, feu, fier, sabier, chucher, clear, 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 cuiche, cae, cae, nuhe, nuhe, nuhe. Okay. Puis, puis, puis. Oh, puis. Okay, that's interesting. Cae. Uh, these are merging. Okay, I guess they would. Tu, tu fais, tahir, tahir. I'm getting a lot of like the low tone. Tahir, tahir, repier, re, refait, refait, tahir, shisue, shisue. I need to make tongue twisters for these languages because like otherwise I am not going to be able to pronounce things. Kuha, kuhahie, kuhaye, kae, tre, chesue, treje, Treje, jihache, tu, okay, okay. Interesting. So we get this and then we get a. Okay. So export this. And then we need to go. Interesting. Okay, you met Mohammeds that are not Muslim. Okay. Interesting. It was common. Let me, and then we need to go export here. Yeah, these are still distinct from. Interesting. Okay. Those are still like distinct. What we're going to do is we're going to keep going with that. And we're going to see what happens here. Okay, what am I getting? Okay, okay, I need to. I don't know why I did that way in the first place. But these are dusk forms, and these are dawn forms. Interesting. We got stress reassignment happening for some reason. I don't know why. Okay. And then we're going to go here. These are going to get interesting real quick. Chu. So we just get Chu through the board. And then we're going to fecha, fecha, sabiecha, chishecha, chushecha, kliacha, khu, khuchecha, kaecha. Interesting. Okay. Now, I'm going to give a couple more options here. Well, let's say that, so the idea is this would be like the base form of passive or anti-passive. And this would be specifically passive. This would be specifically anti-passive. But I want to look at forms. I want to look at more forms that will do. And I will go ahead and get both of these in at once so that I can do this quickly. Give me a second here. So this is dusk, so we want to go with, what do you want? And then, so here is what I'm asking about is we have these alternate possibilities. This form, these forms, right? The fier in dusk, and then the yu, yeah. So the ye or e forms in dusk, and the u or u forms in dawn. These are going to be present when you have that extra preposition showing up. When you don't, what happened was that we got the prepositions stuck onto there. And the question I have is, do we want to go with the form where the preposition got stuck onto the reflexive form, Or do we want to have the version where the reflexive form is dropped and then we just stick the preposition directly onto the verb stem? Um, trying to think. Okay, I don't usually lose any like, so here I lose a syllable in between the two forms, right? Um, and here I do, but I don't always. So fu fufifu versus fufifu, right? Fufuchi, fufuchi versus fufichi, fufiche versus fufiche. Okay, interesting. Did I mess something up here? Why is that switching? Ah, I get it. Okay, so I actually need to. I need to actually redo these. Let me rerun all of this real quick because the lack of a syllable marker is causing a problem. And I want to I think that turns out the same. And this turns out the same. But we want to. And this should be. So you can just do all of this at once. Okay, now that's properly. Okay. Now we can actually look at this and this. Can I blow this up? You zoom so that people can see what I'm looking at. Yeah, so so we rarely actually lose a syllable, which is the reason why you would prefer to just delete things, all right? Okay. So, I think yeah. Okay. So, yeah, so we have passives and antipassives. Antipassives that delete the agent, patient, sentence performed using the passive, antipassive forms of the verb. Okay, so we have specific passive and antipassive forms. And what we do is like what we have is this original reflexive form. This original reflexive form got the preposition stuck onto it. So this will be the passive. Is that right? Let me double check because I get these things wrong. So passives. This is the antipassive. This is a passive, right? So this is the antipassive, and this is the passive. All right. All right. Okay. So that's all fine. And then let's look again at the relative clause. So the relative clause is still just using this form that we're familiar with. Now, we can do that. We can also look at the way property words worked here was property words are expressed as verbs. And the pregative structure is just an intransitive form. We also had property words follow a noun that they modify. So why did I make the relative clause? So this is the thing that I am thinking is I don't know why relative clauses are even doing this nominalization step, because I already have this structure for property words. So I think let's work up the two options that we are thinking of. Okay? Because I think this is an interesting choice, actually. So if we talk about relativization, and we were talking about it in this, let's or were we? Okay. So let's look at the middle fay example that we have. And what we have is the resultative. Yeah, the relative clause. So right. So we have yeah. Yeah. Let's go and jump into this, and we're going to do it's going to be a little bit different. So we have what is the word? Okay, dear passive. Let's oh. And let's make it definite. We'll go passive. And then for eat, the dependent form for eat. What is eat even? Yeah. Okay. Where is that? Like, Trishwa. Trish, it's the accusative, right? Trishwa 8. And two. Pue. So we want push. And this would be patsiv. Patsiv trishwa. Trishwa pue. Pue. And what is grass? It's the swish. Shuishi. That's right. Shuishi. Is it right? No. Oh, okay. Wait. Shushi's dawn. Shresh is a blade of grass or a wheat stalk. Oh, and dawn. And then, okay. Yeah, it's shre. Okay. So this would actually be Pue. Wait. That's fine. Okay. And then let's go sha shui. Sha shui. Trishwa. And this is okay, so oh, yeah, it's this. Shihu. Chihu, right? And then it would be cha. Sha. Passive. Passive. Right? Okay, that's the way it would work. If we just carried on through like to modern, what happened in Middle Fey. The other thing that we could do. Okay. This kind of has implications beyond just now. Here's the thing: if we do that, and then we go, we let's copy all of these and then like adjust them to this. So if we have it's Taju. Taju. Okay, Taju. And then I guess we would just go with the pronoun. The accusative, yeah. And with the accusative pronoun. So this would be be, and this should actually be accusative. Grass. Saja. Bi saja. Tapativ taju bi saja. However, we run into an issue. So I feel like this option 2 should only be available for subjects because the verb agrees with subjects, right? If we try to do this, so our real options, here's what our real options are. The question becomes, what do we want to have these two? We could even insert like a relativizer here to disambiguate. You could have a like the D, whatever the D is. The where are they? What happens to D? Okay, it becomes Z, right? We can throw in Z, right? I think Z would be helpful to disambiguate this, right? But what I'm thinking of is we could have this hybrid happen, or what we could have is okay, I do not want you. Okay, we remove that. I don't know why you would want AI viewers at all. Yeah, I think this is good. So what I'm thinking of is if we go here, the thing that this causes is it causes implications for like, okay, if relative clauses are always going to be like this, what about all other adjectives just turning into that dependent form? Right? That AI is AI viewers will not give me good ideas. Okay. Um right? So if we had this dependent form happening all the time, then the question would be like, why is this dependent form just not expanding and just like taking over the role of all adjectives? Which I mean, it could take over some adjectives. But if we do this, then we have our adjective structure being used, but we also have this other structure, and then that is used specifically, and we'd have this required thing here, and that is like the way you have to do it in order to passivize it. I suppose we could just like give a passive form too. Okay. We could give a passive form instead. That would be We could go with an option 3. 3. And then okay, this is definitely actually I think this is definitely a good poll. So we would have then we would have this. So we would have the let's go to base passives, and in dusk we have, what is the passive form? Chejwitcha. That was eaten, right? That's a cool idea too. And then we have the just the general one. Okay. So we have 3 different, like we have a mixed option, we have all one way, we have all the other way. We could have all of them represented. Okay. Yeah. Well, it's 10 o'clock and I need to go. But I think we made some interesting progress here. I do apologize for the problems with the stream. Hopefully that will not keep occurring and I can just have it all work out properly. But everyone have a good day. I think we made lots of progress on like several things, so this is good. But I'm going to log off now and think about this and think about whether do I want to do some kind of poll or survey kind thing. And then with all of that said, let's go ahead and say happy conlang. Happy conlang and